Is another AEW talent jumping back to WWE? We'll talk about it. Plus, a major WWE event has been postponed and scrapped. Kurt Angle WrestleMania plans have been revealed. It's all in the wrestling news right now. Happy Christmas Eve. Everybody's on leave. And it leaves just me and thee to do the wrestling news. And we kick off with some stuff about Miro. We've talked about Miro a few times over the past couple of weeks, haven't we? In fact, we've talked more about him by the fact that he's not been around. We haven't seen Miro doing anything really meaty in AEW for a long time. There was reports from last week that Miro had been pitched some creative that ended up not being the sort of thing that he ended up doing. And consequently, he's just been doing a whole lot of nothing. Now, CJ Perry, the wife of Miro, was on 92.7 WMAY, and she talked about her husband and the likelihood of a return to WWE, which is not the sort of thing that you want to be hearing when your talent's on the sidelines in AEW. CJ Perry said, "Rusev Day will never die. It's always going to be around. The kids are going to want to sing it, and I'm sure it will make a return in WWE at some point." Rusev, well, whatever he shows up back as, whatever friggin' name or gimmick or character he returns as at some point in WWE, it is going to be iconic. That great thing about wrestling is it doesn't matter what company you work for, what promotion, anything can happen. Let's be honest. We know that everyone always returns back to WWE at some point. Some very interesting words from CJ Perry there, coming at a time where, as we've said, Miro isn't doing a whole lot in AEW. These aren't the sort of things that you want to be hearing. Now, there's been some different reports about why Miro hasn't been on TV. There were reports of injury. There were reports of television commitments. There were also reports, as we said at the start of the video, from the Wrestling Observer, of Miro shooting down creative plans. Dave Meltzer goes on to double down on this and says in September, Tony Khan came to Miro and had this idea which would build to a match on the November 19th pay-per-view, which was Full Gear, and Miro didn't want to do it. They went through, and now November is over. We're in the new cycle, and they were going to bring him back and try to come up with ideas for him. And they very well may. Then his wife comes in and says, Rusev Day is going to come back to WWE. Everybody goes back to WWE. If I'm Tony Khan at this point, Dave Meltzer says, given everything that's happened, and the wife of one of the wrestlers goes and says, essentially, everyone goes back to WWE, why waste my time pushing this guy? I've got 100 guys on the roster, and then some, who want to be here, and now you've got these guys who want to be in WWE. Now, obviously, CJ Perry's comments may not have some grounding, but you know what? That's obviously a conversation that has happened, and there's obviously a thought process there. And if you're Miro, who seems to be sort of spinning his wheels in AEW, many are doing great things in AEW. Miro isn't doing anything. And obviously with the changing of the guard, terraforming Titan Towers, there it is, happy Christmas. You got to believe that he, among others, would be considering trying their chances, the first chance they get back over that way. Now, we understand that Miro's contract with AEW is currently locked in till 2026. I do believe Aidan Gibbons, the tribal editor-in-chief for Cultaholic.com, told me that before I came downstairs. So that would suggest that he's not going anywhere for a long time. However, as we've seen in the past few months, there is some wiggle room for certain people. Isn't there, William Regal? Yes. There's another AEW star who mooted possibly doing some stuff in WWE. Now, this isn't suggesting that that he's going to make this jump, but it comes at an interesting time. So Dax Harwood is launching a new podcast, and it's replacing the Gentleman Villain podcast with William Regal. The last episode of the Gentleman Villain featured Dax Harwood making the announcement that, I'm taking over this podcast feed. And even now, if you go onto the Gentleman Villain podcast and you look down at all the album art and stuff, it's all the FTR with Dax Harwood album art. So the Regal podcast is done. Like, where am I going to get my heady mix of wrestling stories from the road and Spike Milligan gags now? I'm going to have to do them all myself. But on this, is it like a debut episode of FTR / final episode of Gentleman Villain, he talked about Cody Rhodes for a little bit. And he said, before I came to AEW, I had a big issue with Cody, which I've talked about. He did a podcast with Sam Roberts, and Sam Roberts said, I'm going to ask you point blank, who's better, FTR or the Revival or the Young Bucks? And without skipping a beat, he said the Young Bucks, because FTR or the Revival, they have to practice their matches, and the Young Bucks, they don't. I took issue with that because I've never, ever practiced a match in my life, and I will never, ever practice a match in my life. That really ate at me because of all the stuff that we built up and we had worked so hard to create. I felt that was taking an SH1T on that by saying that we practice our matches. I got over that. Even though it doesn't sound like it, I did get over it. He and I are good friends. We talk all the time now. I think that he's a visionary. I think he is too smart for his own good, and I hope to be able to work with him very, very soon, because I think I could tear it up with him. Now, Dax and Cash Wheeler, obviously they have a set end date for their contract, and they've discussed not doing any major promotions when that contract expires. They've discussed hitting the indie circuit and just doing stuff that they want to do, and I really, really applaud that. I think that's a great mindset. If you're in a position where you can go, you know what, I'm just going to hit the road, I'm just going to see what I fancy doing. I really like that. But who's to say that at the end of that time, that gap year from the world of wrestling, they might consider making a trip back to WWE. After all, according to CJ Perry, everyone goes back to WWE. She said it must be true. WWE, however, aren't going back to India as planned. WrestleVote saying, I'm told the proposed WWE live event in India scheduled for January the 18th has been postponed for unspecified reasons. This was set to be WWE's first live event in India since December of 2017, and they have had a major interest in the market in India and breaking through. We saw the superstar spectacle that came out of the Thunderdome in 2021, I want to say, which was a highlight of talent from India. We know that Drew McIntyre has been over there doing some bits for them as well. A great video featuring Drew McIntyre where he stops a bank robbery. That's a thing that happened using wrestling moves. Was it a bank robbery? I think it was. And we also heard recently that Indu Sher, who was set to have a match against the Creed brothers at NXT Deadline, were pulled from the show in order to keep them healthy for this event. So it does strike as strange and unusual that they're changing this now. Not to say that the event won't happen at all, but according to WrestleVote, it's not happening on the planned date, which was January the 18th. We'll wrap up with a little bit of news from Kurt Angle's podcast now. He was doing an episode on Armageddon 2002, and he talked about, that was the night where Angle beat the Big Show for the WWE title. It was during what me and my friend Jamie Malone called the brown jeans poo suit era of the Big Show. Can we whack up a picture of Big Show in his poo suit? There it is. Oh, look at the color of that. It is the Bizarro World version of the salmon jacket. The Big Show poo suit from 2002, 2003. But he talked about booking plans that were scuppered by his broken freaking neck. He said, I was supposed to beat Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, but I broke my neck beforehand. So I had to do the job for Brock and lose to him and give him the title before I had surgery. They didn't want me to beat Brock 2 times in a row. So they had Big Show beat Brock Lesnar, and then I beat the Big Show, which is what happened at Armageddon. That way, I didn't beat Brock twice, even though he ended up beating me at WrestleMania because, well, I broke my neck. I was supposed to have a title reign for a whole year. I was going to beat Big Show. I was going to carry it into WrestleMania. I was going to beat Brock and continue on. Unfortunately, I broke my neck in February and I couldn't. I had to have surgery after WrestleMania. And if you kind of look at some of the pieces in place from 2003, if you're a grizzled veteran of wrestling, if you're of a certain vintage like I am, you'll know that like Angle lost the title at WrestleMania 19. When he came back, he won it at Vengeance, beating Brock and the Big Show in that triple threat match. He then retained it against a heel Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam before dropping it to him in the Iron Man match on SmackDown a short while later. So there was kind of that thread there that Kurt Angle would just be this workhorse year-long champion, interspersed with some Brock Lesnar-ness. But the way that it panned out, it gave us that great Eddie Guerrero win at No Way Out 2004. I think everything panned out just fine. Angle believes that he and Brock Lesnar also, a fun little fact about that match at WrestleMania, Angle believes that they were both meant to go into that match as babyface, with a heel turn during the match or at the end of the match, akin to what happened with Austin and The Rock at WrestleMania 17. Angle believing that it was meant to be him that was going to turn heel. I kind of feel like Brock Lesnar would have been a better choice to turn heel if they were to do it, because Brock Lesnar would have a great heel run in 03 anyway. So it would kind of, the plans would kind of merge quite well there if they were to do that. But we didn't get the year-long heel Angle title run in 2003. But we did get Poo Suit Big Show. And that's a treat for us all this Christmas time. We'll have more wrestling news throughout the day at cultaholic.com. Stay safe and love you, bye.